Hi everyone, welcome to episode 5 of the hip dysplasia tutorials. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're really getting on with our weeks now. We've done 4 weeks of exercise and I'm looking forward in 2 weeks time to do some measurements. I hope you guys have all been keeping up with the exercises. I know that sometimes it can be tricky because we've got other commitments, but some recommendations that I can give to you. I often do exercises when I've put some toast in the toaster. So waiting for the toast to pop. When I've put the kettle on, I'm waiting for the kettle to boil. And then sometimes when I come out from the toilet, sunshine will be sitting there, so I'll quickly do some exercises. And other times you can do them is if you're watching TV and maybe there's some ad breaks. But it's really important that you find some time and just make it sustainable, because this is something that you will need to continually do. So it's not a sort of start with the exercises, do it for a few weeks and then stop, because as soon as you stop, you're going to start to see that muscle start to waste away again. So it's important that all the muscle that we're building at the moment, you need to be able to maintain. Please just post in the comments, let me know where you're from, if you're listening, how your dogs are doing on the exercises, and if you have any questions, and I'll happily answer them at the next tutorial. Right, so just to remind you, so we've still got a few more tutorials. They'll be going up until the 11th of April, and you can find them here on the Holistic Vet SA Facebook page. So just a recap of the last tutorial, we spoke about biopuncture, so different products that we can use. We talk about acupressure, and I showed you some pictures of some of the points where you can use and the technique of acupressure. Remember that acupressure ebook is available for the online Pet Health Academy members. So if you go to drmegankelly.com, you can have a look there, you can register, and you'll get access to the whole acupressure ebook with all the points that you can do for all areas of the body. So even if your dog doesn't have hip dysplasia, if it's got other areas, there are other acupressure points that you could use. We also spoke about turmeric and turmeric paste, and how best to make that with adding a black pepper to increase absorption. We spoke about all the omegas, the plant-based, the fish oil-based, and the phytoplankton. And then we spoke about Caprex, which is a product that's it's like a food supplement that I use, and I've seen a really, really great response in a lot of my patients. And then we gave 2 exercises. The one was weight shifts on foam, and the other one was the assisted sit to stand. So if you didn't watch the tutorial, please just scroll down and you'll be able to check out that recording. If you'd like to get notifications of when the tutorials will be live, as well as a link to a recording of the tutorial, then please just have a look in the description for the Facebook Live above. And if you can just click on that link and sign up, and you will get notified with the recording probably 24 hours after we have gone onto Facebook. So today we're going to talk about surgeries. I really wanted to chat about surgery because I think sometimes it's something that we jump to a little bit too soon. So do you remember this pyramid that we talked about? I think it was in hip dysplasia tutorial 2. Things that we could be doing before we did surgeries and other treatments. So we really want to make sure that we're doing the weight management, looking at nutrition, environmental changes, looking at all different types of rehabilitation, from hydrotherapy, underwater treadmill exercise, looking at alternative therapies and natural pain management. Then we'd probably start considering the medication, and only then, if we're not getting a response, would we think about doing surgeries. And I'm talking now really about dogs that are sort of over 2 years of age that have been diagnosed with hip dysplasia, and you are thinking about maybe doing something like a total hip replacement or femoral head osteotomy. So if we're looking at the surgeries, there are surgeries that we do in younger dogs. And these are dogs that have been diagnosed with hip dysplasia when they're less than 4 months of age. So the op that we would do is called a juvenile pubic symphysiodesis. And basically what this is an operation where we actually alter the pelvic morphology. And specifically what they do is the surgeon will damage an area in one of the growth plates in the pubis, which is in the center of the pelvis. And what happens is by doing that, then the pelvis actually grows differently, and it grows and it starts to sort of rotate. So where the socket is, it will rotate more over the femoral head. So the plan basically is that it will improve the coverage of the femoral head, and by doing this will improve congruency and decrease laxity in the joint. But this op is only done in pets that are less than 16 weeks of age. So that's 4 months. And generally, most pets only start showing early symptoms at 4 to 6 months. So these pets that we do, or dogs that we do this op on, would need to diagnose them pretty much before they have clinical signs. And this is not often the case. So we normally see them sort of after 6 months of age. So if we get them and they're more than 16 weeks of age, there is an op that we could do called the triple pelvic osteotomy. And this op I find quite invasive. You basically cut the pelvis into 3 different areas, and rotate. It's the same thing that we're trying to do, is just try and increase the coverage of the socket over the head of the femur. So that area gets rotated and then the pelvis gets fixed together again. And the hope is that there would be improved congruency and also decreased laxity in the joints. I have seen quite a high complication rate with this op, and I think that we do get better outcomes if they have also been diagnosed before clinical signs, so in the early days. So that's in our young dogs. So now if we look at our older dogs, so in the dogs where we've tried everything, our weight management, we've gone through that whole pyramid, our pets may be on medication and we're not seeing any improvements, and they're really, really struggling, then we have 2 options. So the first option would be the best option. That would be a total hip replacement. So in this picture at the top here, this x-ray, you can see there's a prosthesis. So basically remove the head of the femur and we will put a prosthetic in, like a fake hip. And these dogs do very, very well. There is actually a 95% success rate for total hip replacement. They probably in the first 4 weeks, we've got to be quite careful that we don't get any complications, such as luxation. So the fake hip basically, or the prosthesis pops out. Sometimes we can get loosening of the prosthesis, and possibly infections, but they're pretty rare, but we do see them. That's usually the first 4 weeks, and then after that they seem to steadily improve, especially if they are having rehabilitation. And this is the only downside probably of the total hip replacement is the expense. So it is quite an expensive op, but like I said, very, very good success rate. So for those dogs that are sort of end stage, so we talk about these dogs that are, this is really a salvage procedure, this last op, the femoral head osteotomy. So in this picture here, you can see what we do is we actually remove the head of the femur so that there is no joint anymore. And what happens is all the tissues around this area here start to fibrose, and they form what we call a pseudo joint. And it is quite a painful op, because in the first few days afterwards, you can imagine all this tissue is very raw, and it's very, very important in these dogs that have this op that they have rehabilitation from the very first day after this operation. And the reason is because if they don't use that leg, so if they don't weight bear and they don't move that leg, the fibrosis sets with no movement. So then when they do try and move, the range of motion or the ability for them to be able to bend and straighten that joint is extremely limited. And this limitation, as we can remember, we chatted about how pets compensate, causes a lot of compensatory problems, especially in the back and other areas of the body. So if we start rehab very early in these dogs, we can try and get maximal range of motion to be able to bend and straighten it. And we can also help with pain management and discomfort that they might be having post-operatively. One of the problems with this op is that their one leg ends up being slightly shorter than the other. And one of the compensatory things that happen because of this is that the pelvis tends to be slightly tilted, and this it can cause a bit of discomfort, especially in the back for them. And a lot of these dogs need a lot of maintenance, so just muscle-wise, because of all the compensation from the leg length discrepancies. So yeah, so basically we have those two options, total hip replacement or femoral head osteotomy. And I see very often 2-year-old dogs just being diagnosed with hip dysplasia and vets taking the head of the femur off. In my opinion, a dog is better having a hip than not having a hip. So try and work with what we've got. Yes, we do have hip dysplasia, but there's so much that we can do to slow down the progression of the hip dysplasia, instead of just doing something so invasive as removing the hip joint completely. So the exercises for this week are foam corridor, similar to the type of foam we would have used in the last week's exercises where we did that weight shifts on foam. You can get a foam mattress. The reason we make a corridor is because dogs tend not to want to walk on the foam. So you can either do as this handler has done, where they've put 2 chairs and next to the couch with a mattress down, or you can pull the couch actually away from the wall and put the mattress between the wall and the couch. Make sure it's not too thick, the mattress, to start off with. You can progress eventually to a thicker mattress. So the thinner the mattress, the easier it is, the thicker, the harder. It is for the pet. And you can see here, you're basically just going to walk your dog up and down 5 times, twice a day for 3 days in the week along the mattress. They will tend to want to try and step to the side, so make sure that there's nothing that's going to be able to hurt them. So if you've got chairs on the side, ideally you would actually just want to have a complete lot of chairs along the side like this. You won't want them to try and sneak in that little gap as this hand is done. The next exercise is called hip bounces. So very similar to the weight shifts where we put their feet hip width apart. We're going to put either hands on either side of the hip, and we're going to put some gentle pressure down. So what you want is the dog to sort of resist up against you, and we want to see contraction of all those extensor muscles in the hind legs. It's really great for muscle activation and just to build strength. And you can do that 20 times, twice a day, for 3 days in the week. All right, so that's the end of this tutorial. Next week I'm going to talk about joint supplements, and I'm going to give you the next week's exercise. So the next tutorial is on the 28th of February. So I'll see you guys next week. For those of you that are interested, our next webinar will be on barking, and it's going to be lectured by Cara Harris. She's from a company called Happy by Nature. I'm really actually excited to listen to this because Sunshine often barks, and I'd really like to get her opinion. She has got a lot of different views on why dogs bark, and her topic is nuisance or opportunity. So it sounds very, very interesting. If you want to register for that webinar, if you've got a dog that has a barking problem, you can go to drmegankelly.com. You can check out, you can either pay for it individually, so individual access, or you can become an Academy member where you get access to all the live webinars as well as all the recordings of our previous webinars. Thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it, and have a wonderful day further.